Everyone dreams of living an uncommon life, and the best asset you have to achieve your dreams is you. Welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living uncommonly. We're also going to give you some tools and strategies for building wealth and for pursuing an uncommon path that is uniquely right for you.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Wealth Podcast, where I'm your host, Phillip Ramsey, and today it's a solo cast. Holy cow, he's on it by himself. Hang on. This could get dicey. Usually I have a partner, usually Aaron, but he is in the throes of it. He's doing some rebalancing. He's got a busy day. So I thought I would just jump on this thing and record my own solo cast, which honestly, out of the, 10 years we've been doing this, or 6 years or whatever it was, I don't even know. The 200 and some episodes, I've never done a solo cast. That's a long one. So this shall be new for all of us. Hang on. So I guess the idea or concept that I wanted to bring up is just interest rates in general. And how do you maximize them? Because for a long time in our career, interest rates were going down. And so people would refinance their mortgage and they would start getting a better payment. They would start getting a lower payment and better interest rates, so they wouldn't have to put as much money into the bank or give the bank as much money. And so now what do, right? Interest rates are high. Everyone's locked into their mortgage usually. They have like 3% I'm going to use. That's kind of us personally. And so it almost locks you into your house, because as you start thinking about maybe moving, you see a house that you might like. Well, the value of that house is a lot higher, and the interest rate that you'll be paying if you were to mortgage that will be a lot higher. So your monthly payment goes up. Not super appealing. So what in the world do you do? And so the concept I wanted to talk to you about today is call it a recast, or a mortgage recast. What in the world is that? So I kind of wanted to go through that, why you would do it, what are the pros, what are the cons. But let's just first start by, what is a mortgage recast? And a mortgage recast is when you make a lump sum payment towards the principal balance of your loan, and then your lender will re-mortgage your mortgage, or re-amortize your mortgage with a new lower balance. The re-amortization and interest rate and repayment term remain the same, but you can lower your monthly payments because your principal amount went down. Okay, so in layman's terms, it means you keep the same interest rate as you currently have, but you just mortgage a lower balance. And a lot of times, and not all, I should probably preface this, not all mortgage companies that hold your mortgage will let you do this. So you got to make sure that it does, but a lot of them do. And so what would you say is like, hey, if I had extra $10,000 lying around, because that's normally the number, or sometimes it's a percentage of the lowest amount that you can kind of recast your mortgage, but you give the $10,000 and then it goes to your principal, and then you then amortize it with the smaller number. So let me give you some real numbers. Like, let's say you owe $200,000 on your house, and your house is valued at, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Let's say you owe $200,000 on your house, and then you put $10,000 down. Well, then you would recast your mortgage at $190,000 at the 3%. So your monthly payment might go down $200 or maybe $300, but the timeline in which you'll pay off your mortgage is still the same. You just pay less in interest. Kind of cool. So it doesn't mean that you're locked into, you're still living there, but you can still kind of think about maybe getting a lower payment on your current mortgage by doing a recast. So who would consider doing a recast? So when you purchase a new home and you haven't sold your old home, that's when you could do like a recast. So you might have a lump sum payment from your old house that comes in. Then you could contact your bank and say, hey, I want to do a recast because now I have the proceeds from my old house and I roll it into my current mortgage. I just want to do a recast. A lot of times there might be fees involved with that. Not as much as a closing cost, but there might be some fees. So something to think about. And then if you ever receive a large lump sum of payment, now, sometimes if you've been paying on your mortgage for so long, you might be able to do a recast with just the value. So let's say you started a mortgage at $330,000 and now you're down to $240,000. you might be able to do a recast and just do the $240,000 and recast that. But that's something that's going to be specific on the company that's holding your mortgage. Okay. So what's the difference between a mortgage recast versus a principal payment? Any kind of lump sum that you do, you want to make sure that it goes to principal, and then you would do the recast. So it requires you to, like I said, take a large payment towards your principal loan, and then you make an additional payments on your loan without recasting it. That is just like it's just kind of like the payments are the same. The difference between a recast is then your payments would then go down. So something to think about. Okay, how does a recast work? And they can be specific by lenders, but in general, here are the steps. The homeowner makes a payment. You make a large lump sum payment. Like I said, usually it's $10,000. And then you make sure that the money goes towards the loan's principal balance, and then it reduces your monthly payment that you owe. The lender re-amortizes your balance. Amortization is a fixed payment schedule that includes both principal and interest. Once you make up the lump sum payment, the lender will adjust the repayment schedule to reflect your new monthly dues. But like I said, the timeline doesn't stop. Like the timeline doesn't move up. It's just like if you still have 20 years left, you have to pay on that for 20 years. And like I said, sometimes they will charge some charging fees. And then how soon can you do a recast mortgage? If you're thinking about doing a recast mortgage, then you can wait about 2 months before you can go and do that. So if you've had your mortgage for longer than 2 months, you normally can do that again if your lender says it's okay. And then the cool thing about if you qualify or not is if you have, this is kind of the bad news, if you have like a government-backed loan, like a FHA loan, a Federal Housing Administration loan, a USDA loan, United States Department of Agriculture, or a VA loan, usually you won't be able to do a recast. Some jumbo loans will let you do a recast. That's like a bigger mortgage, like a higher number amount. And then you have to meet the principal reduction standard. So like we talked about, like a $10,000, you have to have that. Now, again, like I said, sometimes your lender will let you do it if you have if you've paid down the mortgage a lot, you might be able to recast that as well. And then lastly, you have to satisfy the equity requirements. You have to have some kind of equity in your house, and then that's lender specific. And then you must meet the lender's payment history requirements. So you have to be in good standing. So those are the kind of fun things. So here's the pros. Recasting is way less expensive than closing costs. There's no credit approval, appraisal requirements. You don't need a good credit score. You keep your current interest rates, which I feel like is like the biggest thing here. And you can save on interest and lower your payments. So not a bad gig. You can also apply your lump sum directly to your principal at this point. The cons is, one, your lender might not be able to let you do it. You might not qualify for a recast. You need to make a minimum payment amount. So just be thinking like if you have some money in savings or you came into some money somehow, this would be some time to kind of maybe look into the recast. And if you don't shorten your repayment term of your loan, I think that could be kind of good or bad. But it still kind of goes out however much longer you have on the loan. And then you can't access your home's equity with the recasting. But if you had like a line of credit, I do still think that you could somehow work with some lenders and try to figure out how to use that to recast it. If you refinance your mortgage, interest rates are going to go up. So I don't know if that's super exciting, but maybe the time frame in which that you have the mortgage will change. So that's kind of the difference between refinancing and a recasting. But especially now with interest rates so high, I just don't see a need of refinancing. I haven't heard of a lot of people like, hey, it's time for me to go refinance. Usually they get a home equity line of credit, like a HELOC, on the equity of their house. That's usually kind of what they do. But if you do a refinance, you can actually do a cash out refi, which you can get more money and get an actual check for that and not have to pay interest on that but it would just be in the mortgage. So there's something to think about. So how do you calculate your mortgage cost? You can call your lender if they let you do that. They'll help you kind of calculate, hey, what would this is a good deal or bad deal? Is it worth $100 extra you save a month? But as I know, a lot of people right now are just hurting. They're just paycheck to paycheck. So this is maybe an idea that you can look into. So bottom line, I think a mortgage recast is something nice to even at least have the option to look into. And that's my, I guess, goal at this podcast is just try to give you tips and tricks in order to make your uncommon path, smoother and more exciting. So thank you so much just for listening. Again, I didn't want this to be too long, but I didn't want it to be too short. But a mortgage recast is something to maybe look into if you're trying to figure out, like, how can we get a little bit lower monthly payment? Because refinancing is not your option at this point. So hope you liked it, enjoyed talking about it. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is Phillip, Phillip, @uncommonwealth.com. And you can go to our website and schedule a time to talk as well. So thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. I've been your host, Phillip Ramsey. Until next time, go be uncommon.
That's all for this episode, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.